Hello, hello, hello. My name is Robert. I am the recovery guy, and you have entered into The Fix.
Good afternoon, evening, good morning. This is Robert, the recovery guy, and this is a special podcast from the Saturday night speaker meeting at the South Davis Recovery Club. Relax, enjoy, and share. Have a great night. Thanks for listening.
So, Denise, alcoholic.
Hey, Denise.
And I am a recovered alcoholic. In the big book, it talks about I think the first edition where it talks about the first 100, it's how we recovered, and it's out of the big book. I stayed sober on meetings for 18 years, let's say that. And back in 2018, I started going to Al-Anon. So I started going to Al-Anon, and I found a sponsor who was AA, Al-Anon, and OA, because I struggle with all three of those. And I went through the 12 steps with her, and it changed my life. It completely changed my life, and I'm so grateful. And since then, I have went through the steps 3 more times. And every time it gets better. And I'm so excited. I love my life. I love especially step 9 when I get to make amends. Oh, that's awesome. And every year it gets better. To qualify myself, my husband wants me to tell you my sobriety date, December 9th of 2000. And that is an absolute miracle. I started drinking when I was 13 years old. My first drunk was Halloween, 1983. And I loved it instantly. I loved it. I loved what I could do when I was drinking. I could say and do things that I never could. I was very quiet, shy. I lived in a very abusive alcoholic home. My dad was the alcoholic, and my mom was the untreated Al-Anon, so they physically fought. My role in it was to get in there and try to break it up. Never worked. But I don't blame my dad's alcoholism, his untreated alcoholism, on mine. I drink because I like the effect that alcohol has on me. When I start drinking, I can't stop. And I've never been able to control the amount I've drank. I never wanted to. I never wanted to control the amount I drank. And, it was my lifestyle. And I surrounded myself with people that drank and used like I did. There was a few relatives in my first marriage who they didn't drink. They were normal, and but they never confronted me. They never put me down or cast me out. And I would drink and smoke cigarettes at family events. I was disrespectful to the way I always think of the way I smoked. I didn't care who it affected, and that was kind of like my drinking. I didn't really care who it affected. I didn't even know anything about recovery. I didn't even know I thought people were either partiers like me or they were church people. And I didn't know, and very progressive, very quickly. And I loved it. And I know, but in my 9th and 10th grade year of high school, my dad took a job transfer from Kansas City up to Salt Lake to get me away from those people, those people I was partying with, and of course blaming everyone, taking ownership, and I never did. I never took ownership of anything. So I quit drinking for those 2 years when I came to Salt Lake, and I made up all the classes that I had missed because I don't think I hardly had any credits, and so I made up those. I guess you could say I got my stuff together, but I had no solution for the alcoholism, even though I stopped for 2 years. And it talks about in the big book, stopping for a while and then picking up again. And that's what happened for me. So I came here, graduated with honors, straight A's, so I know I can do it, but I didn't care to. And 2 weeks before I graduated, I found the people to party with again, and it picked up even worse, like I hadn't even stopped those 2 years. I got a DUI when I was 21, and I had, so I had only been 21 for 8 months. And I went to the bar, and I was coming back, so we were going to go sit in a hot tub. I was getting a swimsuit, and going back to the bar, I got my DUI. I didn't realize, really how much trouble that could be. And my dad always paid me out of everything, of my my problems, all the way until I got sober. I know when... and the DUI didn't stop me. I just rode a taxi cab to the bar, and it's like, how crazy is that? But, and when I was sentenced, I was given 2 days in jail, and I think an $1,100 fine, which of course my dad paid. And he never said anything about Alcoholics Anonymous, and I don't know for sure now, but, I think that we can't be sentenced to Alcoholics Anonymous because of the spiritual part of it. But I could be wrong on that. I know treatment centers and IOPs and stuff like that's really popular. But, and I don't think it really would have done anything or changed my life because I wasn't done. And, I thought it was their problem, for stopping me. And then this is my dad. He goes to the court with me, and he tells the judge she could never make it those 2 days in jail. I'll serve her time, Isn't it crazy? Dad. But he was dead serious. He was dead serious. That untreated alcoholism, Al-Anon, that Robert talked about. We the whole family is sick. And that's my family was all sick, and even all of the extended family, so all I remember of a lot of my childhood is the drinking and fighting. I mean, my grown uncles used to fight with each other when they would get drunk. And I think now, I wouldn't take my kids around anybody like that for many reasons. But... I love going to the bar when I drink. And on Halloween of 92, I think that's when it was, 92. Yeah, it had to be 92. I met a man, and we drank together, and a lot. And we had a baby, a little girl, and 2 weeks after my daughter was born, my mom came to live with us to take care of the baby so that we could go drinking. And I know now, that wasn't my mom's purpose of doing that. My mom's purpose was to take care and love on the baby, because I was so selfish and self-centered. I don't think I should have been a mom, but it is a beautiful baby, and we tore it up. And the first time I went drinking, 2 weeks after she was born, I only drank that one pitcher, but the next week, full on blackout drunk, and that's how I drank, and I love to black out. I like to never know what's going to happen. So going on with that, we drank a lot together. We didn't fight. We didn't cheat. Any of that. That's not true. Whenever I drink, I flirt pretty bad. But when my daughter was 3 years old, because during that time, from the time I was 18 until I met my husband, and he only drank. He didn't do any outside issues, but I did, and I was offered that, and I picked up that again, and I won't say I hid it. Yeah, I tried to hide it for about 8 or 9 months from him, and he thought I was cheating on him, but I was using outside issues. So he didn't have any. He had no tolerance for that, and he told my parents, "We've got to get her help. She's sick. We can't help her." And my insurance at my work would only pay for IOP. They wouldn't pay for inpatient. And he threatened me like, "I'm going to divorce you. I'm going to take the baby," all this stuff. And I couldn't quit. I just couldn't quit. And, he put me in that IOP, and on Wednesday nights from 8 to 9, they had an AA meeting that came in. And I'm very grateful for that, those people that did that service, and I thought how, I just laughed at it. I laughed at the people that said the prayer, that clapped over the happy birthday, all of it, and I couldn't hear it. I could not hear the solution. And, he ended up filing for a divorce, and I had custody of my daughter. She was 4 or 5. And I was an unfit mom, and I couldn't take care of her. I could not stay sober. Do I regret that? Terribly. But you know what? I did the best that I could at the time. I didn't see her for 2 years because I was living in the streets, and I felt like, oh my goodness, finally I'm free. But that got old really quick, just with myself and those things that I was doing. So he took custody of her. He actually filed whatever, and he got custody and I didn't. And if I was gonna visit her, I had to have supervision that I paid for, drug tested, and I, first of all, I couldn't pay the $25 to get the visitation, and I don't know if I even really wanted it, because it was like I didn't get any benefit from it with the things I was doing. But I had heard that solution in that IOP. 4 long, hard years of partying and thinking that I wanted to be free like that. I didn't have a heart. I didn't have respect for myself or anyone else. I wouldn't even see my daughter. I remember one year I didn't send her a Christmas present. He's like, I am so mad at you for not sending her a Christmas present. But I couldn't go to the store and get her anything. And my dad, of course, I was living with him, would have paid for it, but I didn't, and do I regret that? Yes. So I'll just tell this part of my story, and then I'm going to go to the book. So So he moved to Albuquerque, and he had her in Albuquerque. When I got sober, when she was 7, I started showing up, and I called, and I wrote cards, and I did everything I could. She would come here, we would go to picnics and campouts and meetings, and she went to the Boys and Girls Club while I went to work. I got responsible. I got where I could care for her. And one thing that happened to me when I was still out there in the streets, I would get sober a little bit, and the feelings and the way that I had been doing people, and I would have to get loaded again. So this cycle all the time. How I got sober was I got arrested, and that was December 13th, and I got sober on December 9th. And I went to jail, and I was like relieved because I couldn't stop on my own. And, I didn't know how much trouble I was in. I was charged with a first-degree felony with 2 enhancements, so that's 15 years to life. The other inmates would tell me, oh my goodness. And my brain knew the only way out of that was prison. And, when I was in jail, and I don't think I was there for very long, and the officer yelled, Alcoholics Anonymous. And I knew in my heart that's where I needed to be. And I went to that meeting, and the 2 men that were there said, we've been where you're at. It can get better for you. And there is a solution. And I'm thinking, no, I'm in too much trouble. I can't, it's not going to work for me. And, I worked in the laundry department for $0 an hour. I went to the AA meetings, but there were 5 fellowships that came in, and all the 12 steps, and I just listened to it, and it was, I was hearing it, and when I was 83 days in there, I went to court, because you have to go, it's called roll call. You go there, and I don't know, just making sure you're there. I'm not really sure why they do it, but the prosecutor and the judge and my attorney let me go on my own recognizances to pretrial. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. And they let me out at like 9:30 at night. My mom and I went to Village Inn and had a meal. The next morning we got up, because obviously she's taking care of me and taking me, to my responsibilities. And I checked into pretrial, and we went to a meeting at Fellowship Hall. It's a club out in Salt Lake. And one of those men that came in from AA was in that meeting. And I'm like, oh my goodness, maybe they're telling the truth. Maybe this could work for me. And I'm still friends with him today, and I don't know, I remember at my first apartment, he brought some used furniture, and it's not that it was used, but he brought me furniture, because I had nothing. I had nothing to cook with, nothing to sleep on, any of that, and all that stuff comes back, right? So, and I kept going to court to those roll calls every month. And at 15 months, they gave me drug court instead of prison. And I have not spit in their face and went back to using since then. If people are doing drugs and alcohol and it's getting crazy, I'm gone. I am. And that daughter that I had, she was 7, and we would go to meetings. I don't know. I don't know. I didn't really know how she was because I didn't know her like maybe a mother should when she was living in Albuquerque. But she would come in the summers and Christmas and Easter. So in 2018, she graduated from some kind of medical school. And then she got pregnant and had a little girl in the next 9 months after that. And I went down there, and I've never loved anything more than that baby. I cried for 3 or 4 days when I had to come home. And so we were back and forth seeing each other. And she trusted me with her baby, and but when they moved here, when my granddaughter was 4 months old, and I realized how much my daughter and her husband were drinking. I got a new car to drive to Albuquerque back and forth, and when she was here, we went up to Brian's brother's, and I didn't know she had been drinking before, and then she got there and she's like puking all over the place, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and pukes in my brand new car, red strawberry something, and I took her home to her husband, and he went around to get the baby, and I said, no, you come and get her tomorrow, and it just progressed and progressed. She had another baby, and I was taking care of both babies, but we were trying to share them and do stuff together, and I really got to know her. I really and she was so sick, just like me, and she couldn't take care of her kids, just like me. And I did get angry about it because I wasn't taking care of my recovery. I wasn't going to meetings, all these things. And it doesn't matter, right? I can go for a long time with no meetings because I've got the book, I've got the solution, I've got people to call. Anyway, they flew to Albuquerque or Austin, Texas, for a wedding. And when they came back, they were fighting, and my daughter called me and said, Mom, come to the airport. We've lost the keys. And I didn't really take it serious because I didn't have any way to get the keys, and I kind of laughed at her, and she gritted her teeth and said, come to the airport. By the time I got there, they were fighting. He backed over her with their car and crushed her to death. And, I heard a lot of deaths in the rooms and in the meetings that I've heard. And that's one that I hadn't heard. My oldest granddaughter was 3 years old, and she was in the car. So she heard my daughter gasping for air. I don't know. It blows me away. And then I had the 2-year-old with me, and they released, the whole time that they were drinking, my fear was the kids were going to get taken by the police, and they weren't going to give them to me. So I thought that it would be a DUI or their house get raided. And they gave the kids to me, and I'm sober enough that I can take care of my grandkids. I can send them to school. They're growing and learning and healing, just like all of us, My son-in-law is in prison. We're killing her. And, in the big book, in the resentments, in the step 9, we make amends where we're resentful. And I haven't made amends to him, and I don't know if I should. I've had a couple different sponsors tell me, no. And then the most recent said, I can't tell you what to do. You and God have got to decide that, you know. And she wants me to tell him how I feel. And I'm so angry at him, not just for killing my daughter, because I can accept that. I'm just like any other death in the rooms. He fought me for a long time in court for my grandkids, you know, and that makes me very angry, and I don't trust him. So that being said, my daughter passed away. My grandkids have a sober home. Is kind of crazy in my home, but you know, I never expected that one. So in the big book, in the first 43 pages, so, you know, we have the forewords to the 4 editions, and then the doctor's opinion that talks to us about the physical allergy that we have, and then Bill's story, how he got sober when Ebby came to visit him, and Bill didn't respect him. He pushed a drink over his way, and he's like, no, I've got religion. And Ebby didn't stay sober, but Bill did after that. You know, in the first 100, the first 100 had input of the book. You know, Bill wrote it, but you know, just what a miracle it is to have those 12 steps. And at first it was just the 6 steps. But so there is a solution, and it talks to us about the 12 steps. It talks to us about the mental obsession, where we, even though the allergy of the body is, we drink it and it kicks off the craving. We need to stop physically, but our brain is like, can't quit planning it, can't quit chasing it. And on page 23, it talks a lot about that. You know, it tells us about that, and it talks about how, even though right now we know what the trouble it's caused us, and the breaking our homes up, doing all these things, we can't remember those consequences, and we continue to drink. So the first 43 pages are step 1. And I love more about alcoholism because it gives us like three or 4 stories about that mental blank spot where we forget and we pick up again. I was reading it before I came tonight, and I like the Jaywalker. I like Fred, where he just and it's the thought, not before the action. It's the thought that gets us, you know. And the guy that puts a shot of whiskey in his milk and thinks it won't hurt him too bad, you know, and it's like, really? But I'm sure that I would have tried to trick myself pre-recovery about that. So in We Agnostics, so it says the preceding chapters, so like all those chapters up to page 43, you've learned something of alcoholism. So it tells us what it is, what we do, the thinking. We hope we have made clear the distinction between the alcoholic and the non-alcoholic. If, when you honestly want to, you find you cannot quit drinking entirely, or if when drinking you have little control over the amount you take, you are probably alcoholic. If that be the case, you may be suffering from an illness which only a spiritual experience can conquer. So, right, we have the physical allergy, the mental obsession, and then we have the spiritual, where we need to the rest of the steps, because in 2 we believe or we don't believe, and it's like, what is your choice going to be? That's the choices you get, and it talks more about people that are the intelligence. They have a hard time with God because it's because they can't believe. I don't know, but it talks about we have to believe. Are we even willing to believe? And it says we're well on our way if we're even willing to believe. In how it works, they read that we're alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. Step 1, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. And I've been told steps 1 and 2 because we have to have that higher power and that belief, and that God could and would if he were sought. And I'm probably sure many places it talks about if we seek him, that's the solution. I mean, and that's what this sponsor that I have right now, and she's just like, all I can do is push you to God. I can't tell you what to do. It's like, and that's true. Even the other sponsors I've had, I do what I want anyway. And because I want to do what they say, but it just doesn't work for me at the time. And then next is talking about the decision. Made a let's see, what is made a decision? Okay. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. So that's our decision. And then we have the 3rd step prayer. First, we have the 3rd step promises, and then we have the prayer. And like the book is full of prayers and promises, not just the 9th step promises that we read in most in meetings. So steps 4 through 9, where we do our resentments, our fear, and our sex inventory, which like all the 4th step is about is fact-finding, fact-facing process. It is not complicated. There's nothing to be ashamed of. We've all got resentments. We all have fears. And then we have the sex conduct that it's not about every single act that you've done, or, that's what I've learned. And then we tell someone our inventories, we find our defects, and then in 6 and 7, we become willing, and then in 7, we ask that those defects be removed. In step 10, we continue to take personal inventory, because it's like everybody's scared of the 4th step. Well, it says continue to take inventory, so we're doing it if you're going to do it for the rest of your life, But, right, it's just the resentment, the fear, dishonesty, and anyway, there's 4 of them. Let's do it. I don't know, and I love the prayers, but I think also my higher power wants me to pray my way. Okay, so we continue to look for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. And I have a really hard time seeing my selfishness, because I think I'm helping somebody else, and it's a payoff for me. And, it talks in the 3rd step where we're talking about the actor that's trying to run the show. And, right? Isn't that my selfishness and me trying to run the show, and I'm trying to manipulate everybody, and they're getting upset with me, and then we're at odds. But so we look for those things throughout the day, the selfish, dishonest, resentment, and fear. And when we make a mistake, we ask God to remove it. We tell someone or talk to someone about it. We make amends, and then we look for somebody to help. That's it. It's just like the 4th step, not complicated. And then 11, the prayer meditation, and I still have a really hard time with meditation. I can pray and I write my prayers because my brain's so racy, and I ask for answers. And now I'm starting to get that intuitive thought to where I know what to do, and and I know it's little stupid stuff, but it's like I know it's not of me because I couldn't do it until I ask, and then I don't know. I love this program. I love what it does, and prayer, and in the 12 and 12, it talks about like our inventory, our writing. Our prayer and our meditation. It said these things, basically they work for us. And then 12, we help somebody else. And I feel like it's not just someone in Alcoholics Anonymous. It might be my neighbor who needs a meal. It might be their teacher at school, and I can hang out and read a book for somebody because they've got so many little kids. And I never would have thought that I would be able to do those things. And but I do Bridging the Gap, and I try to help women out of prison or jail. And there was a lady about 5 years ago, and she's still sober. She doesn't practice Alcoholics Anonymous, but she works in some kind of treatment center as some therapist or something, and I think that's great. And every year on her sobriety day, I text her and tell her how proud I am of her. When I go to a meeting and someone's new, I grab them and I try to get them to call me, and I try to let me help them. And and I'm so grateful. Oh my gosh, there's so many blessings. My first husband that divorced me and put me in treatment, and you know what? I'm so grateful that he did that. I might not be alive, if he hadn't put me in treatment. And he was pretty mad at me when my daughter first passed away, and he threatened to take the kids from me and everything. And now we're on good terms, and he tells me that I'm doing good with the kids and stuff. And I know he means it. I had another baby in sobriety. She's just turned 21 last week. And she was, after my daughter passed away, she was drinking and smoking and doing everything. And I couldn't do anything about her either, just like with my daughter. If she would have went off the deep end, I couldn't have, I can't control it, My kids thought it was funny that I'm in recovery. They made fun of me. And they said, my daughter that's 21 said, "Oh, Mom, I wish you could drink with me." I'm like, "Oh, no, you don't." No. I can't control myself. I cannot control the amount I drink. I cannot stop, and but my daughter got sober, and her and her boyfriend moved in back in March, and there's differences and stuff, and but he can pass a drug test to get a job, and he has the best job that he's ever had in his whole life. And I don't know. I get to be a mom, and I get to listen to my daughter when she's upset. All those things that didn't really matter to me. What else do I do? Oh, I take meetings into the jail, but right now the pod that I take in, they're working on the doors, so I'm kind of out of that for a little while. But that's really rewarding, and the people that come to the meeting every week, and some of them are going to federal prison, and they don't get out. They're coming because they want to, and I think that's awesome. And I tell them the same things that I was told that it can get better, and they've got like 8 years or 12 years or whatever, and I'm like, it doesn't matter. You can go to prison sober, and it's a lot easier when you're sober to be locked up. I got married, my second marriage in sobriety, and that was kind of an abusive relationship, and he was drinking and stuff, and I didn't know, and he too divorced me. So it's like, and then I married Brian, and we have I don't know if it's normal, but we're both in recovery, and he's raised my daughter since she was 5 years old. I hadn't seen my second husband in 16 years because he had been in prison most of that time. And he showed up at a meeting a month or so ago. I'm just like, he's so beat up from that lifestyle. And I'm not laughing at him, but he called my daughter on her birthday. And he was calling from an inmate phone. And then he told me how he had relapsed. And I said, you can't talk to her today. You can't. She won't want to talk to you. And he's like, okay. But why ruin her 21st birthday? Because he's finally locked up, because he never calls whenever he's outside. I went back to school when I was 39 and got a bachelor's degree in accounting, and I cannot believe that, because like I told you, I could barely go to school whenever I was like in 9th and 10th grade. But I was an example to my kids, and I try to be a good example of Alcoholics Anonymous and a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I love this program and the things that I've learned. So like I said, for the first 18 years, I went to meetings, and that was my recovery. When I went through the steps in 2018 with my sponsor, I've made some pretty big financial amends, and when I do, it feels like freedom. One thing I did is I paid back the restitution from when I got those charges back in 2000. I did all the paperwork because I had too many charges to get it expunged. So I did all the paperwork to go in front of the Board of Pardons, and they let me go in front of them. And there was 3 people, and the lady that was talking to me, she was shooting off questions like where I live, who I was married to, what kind of everything, and jobs I've had. And I could answer her honestly. You know what? And I wasn't afraid of that. And 2 weeks later, they gave me a full pardon, so I have no record. Isn't that awesome? Yeah. That's God. It's not me, because I couldn't do it on my own without my higher power. And I'm glad you guys are here. If there's anyone new that didn't announce theirself, welcome. I'll help any of the women in the room that wants to talk. All I have is the big book and my experience. So that's all I've got.
Thank you. Stay right there. Don't go anywhere. See, now you know why I like her so much. This is something that Ricardo and I did, and for those of you who don't know, we give away certificates to people who speak, so this is to Denise N, and just on behalf of this meeting, thank you so much. I appreciate your story. Thank you for sharing. When we first get sober, it's honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. And Denise displayed that open-mindedness and willingness and honesty. And then we stay sober by unity, service, and recovery. And she's moved from honesty, open-mindedness, willingness. Never moved from it, but she is now unity, service, and recovery. And her service to others and to the Big Book and to Alcoholics Anonymous it's really a privilege to be your friend. And one of the things she talked about, and one of the things we all have in common is when we start drinking, we don't stop. It's what separates us from normal drinkers. It's what separates us from my brother and for people, family members that they could go to a party, they could have a drink, and they could maybe not even drive home. We wonder how we got home. You know, the next day we see our car in the driveway. I don't even remember going to the party, let alone driving home. And it's that phenomena of craving. And one of the things that Denise really talked about, you know, and I am a recovered alcoholic as well. Not because I can never safely drink. That's off the table. That's stamped in my DNA. That's been proven over and over again. If you ever wonder, just talk to me about my first step and the unmanageability and how I was powerless over alcohol. But what I do recover from is ever wanting to drink again. I recovered from that seemingly hopeless state of mind and body that the first 100 talk about in the forward to the first edition. And that's what we recover from. And a lot of times I'll go into treatment centers and they'll say, as a sober person, how do you get over the craving? I have to understand the difference between a craving and an obsession. A craving occurs when I'm drinking. It's that mechanism that tells me one is not enough. 10 is probably good and 20 is even better. That mental obsession occurs after I'm sober. And it's why the insanity of my addiction doesn't show itself until I'm sober, until we're sober, until we're not drinking anymore. And yet there's that component in me that says, let's burn our life to the ground one more time and see what it looks like. That's the insanity, and that's what we recover from. And I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful you're a recovered member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And we're glad you're here. And Brett, you want to come up and read for us? Brett's going to read the promises and the Lord's Prayer. And thank you all for being with us this evening. Thank you.